And kind of sticking a little bit to the technology and the strategy thing, there's something I'm going to ask you to do, and then I'm going to flip it a little bit. Um, the Ellie event is dealing mostly like with, at this point, business development and media at this point. So I guess one, I know going over there, one of the things that has allowed you to do that is the fact that you can speak, if I remember correctly, fluent Mandarin. So if you could give an example of that. And then two, share a little bit of the curriculum in terms of what people will expect and who they'll meet when they go there. And then to bring it back on the American side for a second, if I remember correctly, you were one of the beta testers with the BlackBerry back when they first did the portable email. So after you get done talking with Ellie, can you kind of share that example of just where you've seen technology, start at and move to since you've been using it?
Sure. So the Executive Leadership Exchange is a program that basically is like it states, we're going to do an exchange between leaders in the U.S. and leaders in China. And it actually doesn't have to be just the U.S., anywhere non-China. We have some French executives that are looking into the program as well right now. So the Executive Leadership Exchange is just executives on the executive level doing an exchange with executives in China, but not just any executives, the central government of China. So we have a historic, groundbreaking relationship with the China Executive Leadership Academy Pudong. This acronym is CELAP, C-E-L-A-P. And 2 years ago, they worked with the Australian federal government. A year ago, they worked with Japanese business leaders and executives. And this year, they decided to open up to an American company, specifically my company, Black Card Circle. So we're the only American company that has access to the China Executive Leadership Academy Pudong. Through this academy, we have access to any central government official, not just entertainment or media or Hollywood, any. So we're going to be doing different industries. We're going to be focusing on 8 or 9 different industries through the years. But our first industry and focus is on media, specifically radio, film, and television. So right now I'm working, for example, with different producers like Janet Yang and Andre Morgan in terms of here on the American side to get people over into the China side. So that's a little bit about the Executive Leadership Exchange. I was able to accomplish this because, one, I'm ethnic Chinese. So the Chinese are more, like a lot of nations are more comfortable working with, I don't want to say their own, but, in this case, their own, especially the Chinese. They've had a history of a lot of imperialism from Japan to Western states like the British and their colonization of Hong Kong and the Boxer Rebellion in the late 1800s. So there's this fear of foreigners, and there's very powerful words they use, like the white devil, or different words they use to describe foreigners. So even though they're doing business with Hollywood right now, there's still a level of distrust and legacy there. My grandfathers were leaders in China. My mom's dad was a chief of police of Taipei, and my dad's dad was Air Force General for President Chiang Kai-shek. So both my families were presidential in the presidential administration of China, in the past administration. So because of that family heritage, I have an understanding of that level of Chinese government. So when I interact with the government officials, it's very natural and easy for me because I was raised in that environment. My first language was Mandarin Chinese, so I didn't speak English till I was 5. When I was in kindergarten, I couldn't speak English. I was one of those little kids sitting in the corner, like the teacher would be talking to me, and I'd be like thinking in Chinese. Well, how do I say sama? I'd be using like Chinese to think, and I couldn't speak English. So I have a really funny story. I was in kindergarten, and I had a sore throat, but I didn't know how to say that in Chinese, in English. Mind you, I couldn't speak English. I just had certain words I learned watching TV. And I rose my hand, and the teacher came up to me. I said, I was just pointing at my throat, right? And I said, fish stick in my throat. She's all like, fish stick? And she goes, open your mouth. I'm opening my mouth. She goes, what? I'm trying to say, I had a sore throat, and so it felt like I had a fish bone in my throat, right? But I didn't know how to say sore throat in English, so I said fish stick. And she's like, fish stick? So she took me to the school nurse, and she looked at opened my mouth and looked at my throat, and it was all red. So she figured out I had a sore throat, but I didn't know how to say it. I just remember that because I was walking to the nurse's office and looking up, and I saw a sign that said office, and I remember saying to myself, I couldn't pronounce it. I just said off ice, and I was just like trying to make sense of words. That's when I was 5. because I spoke fluent Mandarin. Now, that's come in handy for me now because when I'm in China, I turn it on. I just speak fluent Mandarin, you know. So I'll do it now, for example. I'll speak to you in Mandarin just for a few seconds. But 因为我是美国长大的，可是我中文讲的还可以，所以我在中国的时候，我讲中文，他们就是以为我是台湾来的，因为我有台湾的口音，可是我讲的国语还可以，所以我讲的时候，政府都会比较高兴，会跟我讲谈话的话，就会说比较多一点的东西。因为我不会讲国语的话，就讲英文，要反应的话也很麻烦，要找别人做，所以我就直接跟他们讲国语就比较好。So I just spoke to you in Mandarin, explaining to you why it's a benefit for me to speak Mandarin to the government because they're more open to me, they're more apt to sharing more information with me, and I don't have to get a translator because then it becomes inconvenient and awkward, and there's something that's lost in translation, whereas I can just speak to them directly. So you know, when I was younger. It definitely has become a benefit for me now because Mandarin Chinese is not easy to learn, but I grew up speaking it as my first language. So
No, it's not. It's really not. And talking, kind of going, since this is somewhat about the technology and bridging it, you already spoke to how a little bit about how technology and the internet and social media has allowed you to, in a very short period of time, take the Black Card Circle and the Black Card Circle Foundation from a domestic U.S. Organization or entity to both of them being global. But I also remember you were telling at some point you tell a funny story about you being a beta tester for one of the early BlackBerries. Can you recount that?
Yeah. When I worked at Fidelity Investments, I was one of their youngest vice presidents. So at 26 and a half, I was a vice president at Fidelity Investments. So one of the key things that Fidelity Investments, the mutual fund company based in Boston, did was they really focused on technology. Technology was huge. So the BlackBerry was relatively new. It had just come out. If you recall, there was something called the Palm Pilot. So the Palm Pilot was kind of like the big thing. So everyone had a Palm Pilot, and then BlackBerry came out with this little, or RIM came out with this BlackBerry. So it's little like this. I still have a few of the prototypes, and the screen was like green, and there was this little thumb wheel, and they let me use it because one, I was a vice president, and because you know, they knew I was a technology kind of a geek, if you will, because I love technology. So I started using this, and I showed one of my clients. You know, one day I walked up and said, "Hey, look what I have." And he looked at it. He goes, "That's cool. What can you do with it?" I go, "Well, I can send email on it, portable email." And the guy looked at me. He goes, "Why would I want portable email?" He's like, "I could just go home and check my email on my computer. Why would I want to have a device that has portable email on it?" Well, now everyone has a smartphone now, and everyone's checking their email. So the cool thing about that thing was it also had a fax capability too, so I could send text faxes to people too. I mean, this was like over 10 years ago, but I've always been a keen adopter on technology, which is why I jumped on Twitter about 4 or 5 years ago. I knew Facebook was going to be big when I first signed up. When I first signed up, I literally signed up a week or two after they opened it up to the public, because it was in the beginning it was only for Harvard University students, and then they gave it to Ivy League students, and then they opened it up to the general public. And I was literally one of the first, maybe a week or two after they opened it up, that I signed up on Facebook. And the day I signed up on it, I said to myself, "This is going to be huge." I knew it was going to be big, and naturally, it's become a big phenomenon now. So, big believer of technology, big believer in connecting people through technology as well.
And I kind of asked that to lead into another question. And in terms of disclosure, I actually am a member of the board of directors of the Black Card Circle Foundation, and Corey is on the board of advisors. And when you're in Shanghai, China, you are very communicative. You communicate very freely, openly, and how do I want to word this? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And I guess how does technology necessarily, and looking at it from even when you were with Fidelity or when you started Black Card Circle and the foundation, how has technology allowed you when you're traveling and doing stuff to, say, close the gap and be able to almost transparently continue and conduct business? And then what, say, tools do you use to be able to do that when you're in China? Because I know that there are times that 3 or 4 in the morning when you're in China, you'll text me here and say, "Do this," or "Look at that," or "Here's a picture, isn't this cool?" or "Could you take care of this for me?" or think about that.
Right. That's a great comment. You know, one of the things that people, when they travel to China, the first thing they notice is how hard it is to communicate. So if you were to bring your smartphones and everything and your laptop and you land in Shanghai Pudong Airport, the moment you step out of the airport, you're you're, you're on your own. There's no technology. There's nothing there. You want to make a phone call back to the States, it's $2 a minute. And if you want to do a text, it's 50 cents. If you want to do data costs you like $100 for, I don't know, like 50 megabytes or something. $100. So you're looking at my first time in Shanghai. There's a true story. My first time in Shanghai. This is a horrifying story. I was there for 24 hours. I was on my BlackBerry. No, I just bought my iPhone 4, and I landed in Shanghai. I was there for 24 hours. I was just downloading. I was listening to Pandora, uploading some photos to Facebook, doing my email. You know, I bought like 100 megabytes. I thought that would be enough. I got a warning notice. They text me and says, "Warning, you're over capacity." I'm like, "Oh, no big deal." I call AT&T. They're like, "You're at $1,650." $1,650 for 24 hours of use. I was going to be there for a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it would have cost me 10 grand if I kept going. So I came back to the States and I was livid. I just uploaded some photos and I listened to Pandora and it cost me $1,600. I could buy 3 new iPhones for that, and they didn't care. Well, and finally negotiated down to 500, but I was still really upset. So I learned my lesson, and I learned that if you use Wi-Fi, it's free. So what I did was download a Wi-Fi app called Text Now, and then I get my own dedicated phone number, and I get my own texting. So when I go to China now, I pay nothing. So line all those text messages, and when I call you, it's free. Otherwise, it would cost like $500, $600, $700, $800. So, well, I won't say it's completely free. There is some cost associated with that app, So maybe I'd say it's $50, as opposed to $1,500. So technology is really, if you use it adeptly, if you know what you're doing, Lionel, you and Corey are experts at it. If you know what you're doing with the technology, it's pretty easy to communicate still, but you just have to be resourceful. So that's one thing I've done. Technology has been important to Black Heart Circle Foundation because we're a spotlighting organization. We spotlight other nonprofits like Kobe Bryant's Family Foundation or Usher's New Look Foundation, among others. And we use the internet for that. People use the web now a lot. It's part of our daily life. So Black Heart Circle Foundation, that new website that both of you and your company created, is perfect for what we've been wanting. And one of the blessings I've had is, Lionel, is that when we met, is you actually understand the vision of Black Heart Circle Foundation. So as director of communications, you get the vision and the message, and I have so much confidence and trust in you. And so when you introduced me to Corey, when Corey stepped up and started using his abilities to create such a beautiful website, I knew that you guys were godsends, which is why I invited Corey on as an advisor, because your intellect and your capacity, technology capacity, is just so gifted that the organization is blessed to have you two on board.
And on that note, Corey, do you have anything that you want to say or add or questions?
It's always a pleasure to talk to Lotay. I've heard that Shanghai is probably one of the most modern cities in the world. Is that kind of the what you got from it? That it's
it is more modern than any city in the United States.
Wow.
Yep.
That's saying a lot. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no city in the United States. Manhattan, Chicago, Miami, LA. We can't touch San Francisco. We can't touch Shanghai.
Wow.
Yep.
And it's you wouldn't think that, basically, because the impression that we get as Americans is that we are the most technologically advanced country, and we have, that we're on the leading or the bleeding edge, but we're not, is what you're saying.
We are. We are. We have innovators like Microsoft. We are great creators of technology, no question, and innovators. There's no question. We are leaders in technology. Period. We are. In terms of the adoption and use of it, though, other countries like Japan and South Korea and China. Oh, I don't want to say China. That's too broad. South Korea and Japan have adopted technology at a faster pace than we are, and Shanghai and Beijing and other cities have adopted it. So they were. You know how iPhone has FaceTime video thing? Japan was using that like years ago. They just didn't call it FaceTime. They just call it something else. But Japan, they're really, in terms of the technology. Well, they have Sony, so they have their own technology, and then South Korea has Samsung, which is really huge, and HTC and LG. So they have their folks that are really going at it now as well.